Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into something pretty significant that's brewing over at OpenAI.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of tension.
You've sent us some really interesting sources, AP News, Open Tools, Semaphore, expert statements, all pointing towards this, well, growing unease about OpenAI's direction.
Exactly. We're seeing questions pop up about, how accurate their latest models really are, but also bigger things like their safety procedures.
Right. Specifically, we're going to look at these reports of increased hallucinations in their newer reasoning models, suggestions that safety testing is getting squeezed.
And that whole controversy around them becoming a for-profit company, it's a lot.
Okay, so let's break this down for you. If you want the quick, clear picture on this without, getting lost in the weeds, our goal here is to explore that key question. Is OpenAI starting to sacrifice safety, maybe even its original mission, for speed and, well, market share?
We'll lay out the facts and the expert viewpoints from the documents you've shared so you can get a handle on what this might mean for, well, the future of AI, especially AGI.
And the sources really cover the spectrum, don't they?
They do. We've got legal challenges, news reports on the for-profit fight, articles detailing these potential safety changes, even technical data on model performance.
And that open letter from AI pioneers, that seems pretty weighty.
Absolutely. It paints a picture of deep concern about the whole field, really, but OpenAI is definitely front and center in that discussion.
Okay, let's jump into that for-profit issue first. It seems like the real flashpoint. Reports say former OpenAI employees are asking attorneys general in California and Delaware to actually step in and block it. That sounds intense.
It really is. And the heart of their argument, based on the AP News reporting, seems to be about accountability, especially when you think about AGI, artificial general intelligence.
That point where AI could theoretically outperform humans at most things.
Right. And the worry is, will a company focused primarily on profit really prioritize keeping that kind of power safe, the same way an organization with a public mission would? It's about where the ultimate loyalty lies, I guess.
Paige Headley, who used to advise on policy and ethics there, is quoted raising concerns about who actually ends up owning and controlling AGI. It's a huge question.
It is huge. And it's not just one or two people. AP mentions a group of 10 former employees, and their letter gets serious backing from Nobel laureates Hart, Stiglitz, and big names in AI like Geoffrey Hinton and Stuart Russell. That's a lot of intellectual firepower raising the alarm.
So what's OpenAI saying? Why make this shift? They must have a rationale.
Well, their public line, according to AP, is that any changes are meant to make sure AI's benefits reach everyone. They're proposing this structure as a public benefit corporation, but keeping a nonprofit arm too.
A kind of hybrid model then? The for-profit engine drives things, while the nonprofit keeps an eye on the mission.
That seems to be the idea they're putting forward. They argue the for-profit success will actually fund the nonprofit, letting it fulfill the mission better. It's presented as, a pragmatic way to afford the massive costs as AGI research while staying true to public benefit.
But clearly, not everyone's buying it. AP also mentions another petition from labor leaders and nonprofits trying to protect OpenAI's charitable assets.
And the Delaware AG has said she'll review it to protect public interests. California's AG is apparently looking into it too, though they can't officially comment. So the legal and regulatory heat is definitely turning up.
It's interesting looking back at their origins, as Bank Info Security points out. Founded as a nonprofit, right? With this clear mission for safe AGI for everyone, Altman, Elon Musk.
Exactly. And now, valued in the hundreds of billions, hundreds of millions of users, that massive growth probably fuels a lot of this current friction about its core purpose.
And you can't really ignore Musk's lawsuit, accusing them of betraying those founding ideals. Adds another layer of drama, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Though, as Headley noted in the AP piece, some who signed the letter are supportive, but others are, well, understandably cynical because Musk now runs a competitor, xAI. So motivations are being questioned all around.
Geoffrey Hinton, one of the godfathers of AI, seems pretty direct, though. Open Tools reported he wants OpenAI focused on benefiting humanity, not just enriching investors. And he seemed glad this particular push wasn't led by Musk.
Yes, and the Indian Express quotes him calling the for-profit shift a very bad message. He points out they got tax breaks as a nonprofit because of their safety commitment. Pulling back now sets a bad precedent, in his view.
It sounds like these arguments about purpose aren't exactly new at OpenAI. AP reminded us Musk left way back in 2018. Altman was briefly pushed out last year. Other key people have left too. suggests this tension has been simmering for a while.
It seems so. And Headley mentioned observing a trend inside OpenAI post-ChatGPT's success of kind of cutting corners on safety testing, rushing things out faster. The pressure to compete to generate revenue seems like a growing force.
And Ishtan Walker, another former technical staffer, brought up something really specific in the AP article, this stop and assist clause in the original nonprofit charter.
Right, that's fascinating. He explained it would have legally required OpenAI to basically stand down if some other group was getting closer to AGI but doing it more safely.
Wow, that's a built-in safety break. And that could just vanish if they go fully for profit.
That's the concern he raised. And Nissan Stianen, another engineer quoted by AP, kind of nailed the core issue. The original structure, with its duty to humanity, meant they shouldn't give up that control, given the potential risks. The idea of prioritizing profit in this specific context is what's troubling to them.
Hinton, according to Open Tools, even backed Musk's lawsuit over this, saying the shift just flat out contradicts the original mission. He sees it setting a dangerous example.
And Hinton's worries go beyond just OpenAI's structure. He's been sounding the alarm about AI's existential risks more broadly, even suggesting a non-trivial chance AI could contribute to human extinction soon. This fits with his calls for much stronger government oversight.
Public reactions seem split based on the Open Tools piece. Some support Hinton and Musk challenging the profit focus. Others are skeptical of Musk's motives.
And that term close AI popping up really shows the level of public scrutiny and maybe cynicism.
We also saw in the Indian Express that Meta has reportedly objected to the conversion too, telling the California AG it could have seismic implications for Silicon Valley. So rivals are weighing in.
And that youth advocacy group, ENCODE, they filed a brief supporting Musk. They're arguing this shift risks public trust and puts profits ahead of safe, ethical AI.
Bank Info Security detailed ENCODE's point about OpenAI's original nonprofit pledge not to compete with safer AGI projects if they emerged. They argue that motivation weakens under a for-profit model.
And crucially, the nonprofit board's power to potentially pull back investor money over safety concerns. That would apparently go away too.
ENCODE even argued, quite bluntly according to Bank Info Security, that Altman's touted fiduciary duty to humanity would evaporate under Delaware law because a public benefit corporation just doesn't owe the same legal duty to the public. That's stark.
It is. And it leads us right into the second big worry area in the sources. This reported scaling back of safety testing. Storyboard 18 and Semaphore both flagged this.
Yeah, this sounds pretty concerning. Reports suggest the teams doing risk and performance checks now get way less time, like just a few days instead of potentially much longer.
Insiders, according to Storyboard 18, are saying the whole testing process feels less rigorous, fewer resources put towards fixing the risks they do find.
And this is happening right when OpenAI is shifting focus from just training models to actually deploying them widely inference, right?
Exactly, inference. That's when the model is out in the wild interacting, and that's where unexpected problems or misuse can really surface at scale, things you might not catch during training.
Semaphore quoted a former researcher warning about arms race dynamics pushing development too fast, possibly sacrificing safety checks along the way. It feels like that pressure to innovate quickly might be, well, overriding caution.
And Bank Info Security noted that while OpenAI did set up a new safety and security committee in May, that was after they got rid of their super alignment team.
The team focused specifically on preventing advanced AI from going rogue.
That's the one. Disbanding a team focused on such a core, long-term safety problem. Well, it raises questions about priorities.
And then you have key people leaving: Ilya Sutskever, Jan Leik, Gretchen Kruger, reportedly over disagreements on the security approach. Leik's public comments were pretty pointed, weren't they?
Very. He basically said safety culture and processes took a backseat to shiny products. Coming from someone leading their safety efforts, that's worrying.
Miles Brundage, another policy researcher who left, echoed that concern about the nonprofit just becoming a side thing. It all points to this fear that the original safety mission is getting diluted.
Which brings us neatly to the third concern. These reported hallucination issues with the newest reasoning models, O3 and O4 Mini. Mashable will cover this.
Right. According to OpenAI's own internal tests, these models are supposedly hallucinating way more than the earlier O1 model.
Yeah, Mashable puts the numbers at around 33% for O3 and a pretty startling 48% for O4 Mini. Compare that to O1's 16%. So O3 is apparently making stuff up roughly twice as often.
The system card mentioned in the article noted O3 makes more claims overall, some accurate, but also more inaccurate ones. But the kicker is OpenAI reportedly doesn't know why this is happening, just says more research is needed.
And what's really counterintuitive is that these O-series models, as Mashable explains, are supposed to be better at reasoning. They're built to sort of think harder, spend more computation to refine their answers, compared to models like GPT-4o or 4.5.
So the models designed for better reasoning are actually hallucinating more. That feels backward.
It does suggest a real challenge in getting these systems to truly understand things versus just being incredibly sophisticated mimics.
Especially when you compare it to, say, GPT 4.5, which reportedly had a 19% rate on the same test, and GPT 4o was at 30%. So these newer specialized reasoning models are doing worse on factual accuracy by their own metrics.
An OpenAI spokesperson told Mashable that tackling hallucinations is still an ongoing research area across all models. And to be fair, measuring this stuff is tricky. Different benchmarks can give different results.
Mashable mentioned Hugging Face's benchmark, showing much lower rates for models like GPT-4o, although O3 and O4 Mini weren't in that specific test. So there's some complexity in comparing numbers.
True, but regardless of the exact percentage points, the fact that OpenAI's internal assessment shows such a jump in hallucinations for models billed as better reasoners, well, it definitely raises questions about their reliability, doesn't it? Especially if people are using them for tasks where accuracy is critical.
Definitely. Okay, finally, let's broaden out to those expert concerns, particularly that right to warn letter that Stuart Russell and others signed, highlighted by the Kavli Center.
Yeah, that letter is quite something. It's a collective plea, really, for AI companies to let their employees speak out about potential dangers without fear of getting fired or sued.
It paints a picture of a field moving maybe too fast, taking too many risks,
and potentially creating a culture where people are afraid to raise red flags. It explicitly references stories coming out of OpenAI's own safety teams.
The letter acknowledges AI's huge potential benefits, but it's also very clear about the serious risks from inequality and misinformation right up to, well, losing control and potential extinction scenarios, risks that the companies themselves and governments have acknowledged.
And it makes a key argument. These companies have massive financial incentives to maybe downplay risks or avoid strict oversight, and that normal corporate checks and balances might not be enough for something this powerful.
It emphasizes that employees often know things about capabilities, limitations, safety gaps that the public doesn't, but they're hampered from sharing this.
Right. Weak obligations to tell governments, none really to tell civil society. Confidentiality agreements are a big barrier.
So the letter basically says, without good government oversight yet, these current and former employees are some of the only people who can provide real accountability, but they're often silenced.
And standard whistleblower laws often don't cut it, because they usually cover illegal acts. Many AI risks aren't illegal yet, just potentially catastrophic. Plus, the fear of retaliation is real.
So the letter calls for specific commitments from AI companies. Don't enforce NDAs that stop risk-related criticism. Don't retaliate. Set up anonymous ways to raise concerns to the board or regulators. Support open criticism internally. And crucially, don't punish employees who leak risk info publicly as a last resort.
It's a strong push for transparency and accountability, really highlighting the deep unease among many top researchers about where things are heading.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, we circle back to that core question. Is OpenAI sacrificing safety and maybe its founding mission for speed and market leadership?
Well, looking at all this material, you certainly see strong arguments and evidence pointing to serious tensions. That huge backlash over the for-profit move really highlights fundamental worries about accountability, about whether profit could ultimately trump safety and public benefit.
And these reports about skimpier safety testing, getting rid of specialized safety teams, it does raise questions about whether the race to innovate is overshadowing careful risk management.
Then add in the surprise jump in hallucinations for their supposedly smarter reasoning models. It suggests potential problems in development, or maybe just the inherent difficulty of making these things truly reliable.
These aren't small issues. They matter hugely for where AGI development goes. It forces this ongoing critical debate about ethics versus the sheer drive for progress and market dominance in AI.
Which leaves a big question for you, the listener, to think about. Given everything we've discussed, what responsibility do AI companies, and frankly all of us, have in making sure AGI development is safe and beneficial? What other questions should we be asking as this tech keeps accelerating? It's definitely a conversation that needs to continue.